Well, good morning, Mobile, and all of our friends along the Gulf Coast. Thank you again for joining us at 8:30 this Friday for another episode of the Echo Stop Live podcast. We appreciate you tuning in, and I'm Kevin with my great friend Curtis here.
Good morning.
How are you doing, Curtis?
It's Friday, man.
It is Friday.
Can't help but be good, right?
Is that why you're smiling so much?
Good Friday.
Yeah.
It's not Good Friday, but yeah.
It's not. But
Every Friday's a good Friday.
Every
There
Friday's
you
a
go,
good
Brad.
Friday. And that voice you just heard is part of my surprise. I got a surprise for you today.
You and your surprises, man. They always, never
Cease to
disappoint.
amaze you. That's good. We're here today with a good friend of not only ours, but of the community. So Mr. Brad Cooper is with us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for inviting
Not
me.
to
I
be
really
confused
appreciate
with
it.
Bradley Cooper,
Not to be
right?
confused, no. I'm probably a little older than that cat anyway.
Well, I would venture to say, based on what I know and what I've heard about what you've done in the community and your involvement, that you've probably established a pretty good legacy for yourself. So we don't even need to synonymize your name with movie stars, because I think for really what we're talking about, improving the perception at the same time we curb violence in Mobile, I feel like you've got a pretty good footprint in some of the efforts around town.
And I appreciate the acknowledgement. I really do, but it's not me. It's the group of people that I work with that I just have the good fortune of being able to kind of bring along as part of this process
Brad,
goes.
I have to say this though. I've seen you work, and I've seen the things that you do with the cohorts, and everyone needs a leader.
Well, let's tell the viewers what that organization is, and tell us a little bit about what you do, what your primary job is during the day, and some of the other civic activities you're involved in, so we can get a better snapshot of how you spend
Where
your
do
time.
you want to start?
Yeah. Well, I want to throw this question to you. You
Sure.
tell us.
Well, I'll start with the association. I'm currently the president of the Mobile Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association. We are a 100% volunteer 501c3 organization which engages in the community outreach being performed by the Mobile Police Department specifically, and it's to promote and enhance the relationship between the community and the police department.
And what brought you to even get involved in that? I mean, that's my question.
Yeah.
Because it takes somebody to know about it, but also want to get involved in it. What drove you there?
My wife, actually.
Okay.
She was very engaged. She was in class number 22 of the Mobile Citizens Police Academy, which is an academy that is done and sponsored by the city of Mobile and the police department twice a year, usually in the spring and in the fall. She graduated from the academy and was immediately recruited to be the secretary of the association. And so by default, I would be sort of a tag-along as a volunteer to assist with a lot of the community engagement that was occurring at the time. And as it progressed, I went to my own Citizens Police Academy.
Okay.
3 classes later, class 25 was mine, and learned so much. It was remarkably eye-opening as far as the engagement with the activities that are being done. You learn about all the various departments within the Mobile Police Department. I think you even teach some of those classes from time to time.
I do have the great fortune of being able to work with the academy at that regard, and I think that's awesome.
So as part of that, I was engaged from that perspective, and then the then president needed he was transferred to Georgia, and I was asked to step up, and did. And it was one of those instances where you question your ability to lead sometimes in instances like that, because last week when you all had this discussion about influences on community or being influenced, what prompted me, I think, maybe to even be here was sometimes even questioning your own leadership ability or perhaps the influence that you may have on others. And it's a role that I graciously accepted, and one that I have not regretted a day since.
Let's challenge that thought.
You pick my mind. I'll even let you throw this one out there because I'm coming right behind you on this one.
Let's challenge that thought. How important is it for a leader to, for lack of a better word, question their leadership in terms of how well am I leading, and how do I gauge that? How do I improve on my leadership? How important is that?
It's extremely important. Sometimes not even measurable, especially in a volunteer scenario, because you're 100% reliant on the people around you and hoping that maybe they'll show up or engage themselves or feel some level of motivation that maybe not necessarily rivals yours, but that perhaps has some influence on that.
And I'm going to throw this out there because
Yeah, right.
if we're going to go there, I'm going to go there.
Let's go there.
I want to ask you a few questions about owning a business and how that affects safety in the city. But before I do that, I have to ask this question because you mentioned something and it strikes my core, and that is you questioning whether you step into a leadership role. And I think, Curtis, this is fundamentally important that we clear this now, because when we get into how that leadership role drives your participation, I think it'll make more sense. But we as people, this is my opinion, you tell me if you have a different opinion, but my opinion is, we question ourselves as leaders because we base that on our own assumption of ourselves, how well we know ourselves and what we think we're capable of and what happened in our life. But the one who drew up our creation knows us better than anybody. And I feel like if we've been called to leadership, the only leadership failure is when we run away from that opportunity instead of owning it. And it seems like in this scenario, you had those questions, which are perfectly normal for people to have, but you actually walked right into the scenario and you said, okay, I'm going to own this leadership scenario that I have and take it to the next level, which actually it comes back to faith and courage for me.
Yes.
And I feel like when you demonstrate those things, you magnify, and we're going to talk about some of the benefits to the city in that role. But I wanted to point that out. Let me ask you this: you're a business owner.
I'm a business owner and a man of faith.
Okay, so tell us about both. But
Okay.
tell us about the business and tell us about how your faith drives you to do the things you do.
That's such a varied question, and it can really get deep. But that being said, I own a business called Cooper Adjusting and Consulting, LLC. I am in the business. I tell people I'm a problem solver. I solve problems. My trajectory has brought me to a point in my life as a property claims adjuster to engage even further in dispute resolution, appraisal and umpire business, to bring, for lack of a better term, to bring a claim that might be a problem child, so to speak, to a successful conclusion for both parties, both the insurance company and for the individual who owns that policy, who's expecting coverage on that policy.
Wow.
So that's what I do. I have a small team of people that I rely on to assist me with that. I'm a boutique services type of company, so but every day I pray that God guides that philosophy, that business, the people with whom I am influenced by, and the people with whom I'm able to influence in some way. So there's a lot in that, and it's part of the bigger picture when you get into the Mobile Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association. It's become somewhat of a platform in a way, because I open up every meeting that we have with prayer. I give God thanks for all of the blessings that we have, and I pray for the safety of our officers in the community
Wow. Yeah.
every day.
That's awesome.
And then I'm a patriotic guy. We also open with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we establish our quorum and move on with our agenda for the.
That is something that's so missing in society today. So I thank you for doing that. I will tell you this too, that in leadership, especially when you have a volunteer team, you have to develop that style of not that I have to, but I get to, and getting people to say that I get to go out and do this, not that I have to go out and do this, speaks volumes about your leadership.
And I want to say this too. We're always telling our viewers who we don't just ask to watch the podcast. We say come alongside us on this mission, on this journey, because this podcast is just a conduit to really get this message out. But what we really need are the hands and feet, the people to go out there and to do this. And so it's amazing to hear you say that. We do have conversations. We try to not create limits, and we're unashamedly men of faith who have that conversation as well. And to be able to do that in our job, some people would say, well, why are you doing it? I'd say, how can you do our job without it? That's where I see.
I'm just like that too.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would happen otherwise. God has really opened up doors for me in the way that my career path has been taken. And 6 years ago, he afforded me an opportunity to be able to start my company, and it's been a successful venture.
Well, and I want to take it a step further in the discussion and say that you weren't just somebody who wanted to say something. You actually chose to do something. And one of the things we call our viewers, and I'll throw this out to you now, is send us your email. EchoStopLive@gmail.com. Send us an email. Tell us what your questions are. We'll try to get it to at least one question during the show. But send us your email. Participate in it. Don't just watch. Participate in it. And the other thing is, if you see something and you know something's going on in the community, we have an anonymous tip line. And we would encourage you to call that line. It's 844-251-0644. That's 844-251-0644. Highly encourage you to call it. We've gotten hundreds of really valuable tips from the community, which, Curtis, that doesn't just tell me that, hey, people are seeing something and saying something. It shows us, kind of like our good guest today, Mr. Cooper, like they're actually doing something. And I think that's the drive. I think that's the purpose. You demonstrate what this actual purpose is.
And Kevin, I think people want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of something bigger than they are, because it is bigger than us. I tell my team all the time that everything that we do is so much bigger than us. So when we understand that, we understand how awesome of a role we have in doing what we do. So
and you just said something there.
I always say something, but what?
You do always say something, but you really said something. I mean, and look, I'm going to give props to my good friend Curtis over here. This will be one of the few times we'll actually record this, but he speaks from the heart, and I know him. That's why we're good friends. But he not only means what he says, but there's a lot of thought in what he says. And you just said something there when you said the word understand. And I want to ask you as the guest this question. We spend a great deal of time trying to immerse ourselves in the community that we serve, because we are part of the community we serve, and we have to understand what's going on. We can't just see a tip come in or hear somebody make a comment and just presume to know why they feel that way. They may feel that way because they've experienced something in the community. But I want to flip that for just a second and ask you, having been a business owner and then coming to the alumni, to the Citizens Academy, and now with the Alumni Association, do you feel that there's any validity to, if you don't understand what police do and what the police department does, is it harder then to respect some of the stuff that you think they're supposed to do? Meaning, is respect tied directly to any correlation of the understanding of what they do? And has the Academy, the Citizens Academy, the Alumni Association helped you better understand what law enforcement does?
To answer the last question first, absolutely. The experience that I had in the Citizens Academy and subsequently through the Alumni Association have afforded relationships that really highlight the toughness of a job that is so underappreciated, not just in our community, but probably nationwide.
Absolutely.
And our leadership has done a fantastic job of putting together a program that even just slightly introduces you to each area within the department, that you begin to develop an understanding of how all the little pieces work together. You understand better community policing and what that term actually means, and it really affords an opportunity to appreciate and understand the challenge that officers have going into areas of the city that most would prefer to avoid, and they're proactive about it and purposeful about it,
right,
and in a way that engages the community.
And since we're talking about this, we've put together a little snippet commercial for you. It's about 15 seconds long, and I want our viewers to watch sort of what's behind the driving force of becoming a police officer.
You were born to get out there, born to celebrate the bounty.
Born to celebrate the traditions.
This city was born to celebrate our heroes. and you were born to become one.
And I think what we saw here in this little snippet is Mobile is not just a great city, but it's a great city to be involved in the community, and it's a great city to be involved in law enforcement, which is part of the community. And we're again, for those that are tuning in now, we're joined by Mr. Brad Cooper, who is involved in a lot of different activities, not only as a business owner, but as a participant, a volunteer participant in the Citizens Academy and the Alumni Association. But how much do you see the amount of time that you devote to the Alumni Association that you had to put in when you were in the Citizens Academy and that current members of the Citizens Academy put in? Like, how does that pay off in your idea and your vision for what makes this place better?
Oh gosh, I think first I would encourage anybody and everybody who hasn't, or even who has been through the Citizens Academy, to join the Alumni Association, just to further that engagement in the community. And if you haven't, I would highly encourage anyone to participate. While there's a class that started on the 14th of March and for the spring, and there'll be one that comes again in the fall, so look for it. But that being said, the participation, I've been afforded a luxury, and God has afforded me this luxury of time. I have a lot of flexibility with my time being in the industry that I'm in. A lot of individuals or businesses may not have that luxury. Mm-hmm. So I've been afforded a very incredible luxury, and I thank God for it every day that He has opened up doors for me to be able to manage my volunteer activities around my work activities and still make a living doing this and supporting my community in the other role. So for all those who helped me in that endeavor, I'm very grateful for that, their commitment to me and to the association and to my business. It really affords great opportunity.
And I'm gonna ask you a question, because I know you're probably thinking something that I've been thinking too. But we talk about work, and I'm not diminishing the amount of time you spend at work. But work is a method to sustenance, right? It allows us to survive.
That's all it is.
But the work you sounds like you make your work a ministry as well, which is great. But really, what's important is that the Citizens Academy and the Alumni Association really represent significance, right? Mm-hmm. Like being present in the community, being present in an agency, alongside an agency, supporting an agency who serves with the community that they're a part of. Where do you see significance? I mean, I'm listening to what he's talking about. He's talking about all these different organizations. And I'm just hearing significance, like we're doing something significant.
We are, and the Citizens Academy is awesome. I've had a chance also to instruct there. But I will tell you something that's missing, and some things that we can do in the future, and that is expand the Citizens Academy to youth. That's something that oftentimes when we have people who become part of it, we don't see that age group in which we really need to be impacting in some way or having conversation with. And I think there's an opportunity there for that. I don't know what it looks like, but that's the whole point of having these conversations and having this podcast, so that we can talk about these things that are so important for our community, because our schools, and I'm not knocking on schools, but there are a lot of things that are not happening in terms of civics and things of educating people on the responsibility of being citizens in a community and what that looks like. I think we have an opportunity, with the help of the community, of course, to come up with strategies that will actually help us bring youth into those type arenas so that they can actually truly be a part of helping us create a better community.
Well, and we just got a question in, and so we're going to read this question to you. And, I feel like this is from along the same heartfelt mention that you have, and this comes from Denny from Niceville, which is identified as a former resident who used to live in West Mobile, who at the time was worried about crime in Mobile and still worries about crime in Mobile. And the question really pertains to an article that was produced about an effort in Omaha, Nebraska, where they've really been able to cut down on gun violence through community partnerships and community policing. And the question is, does Mobile have anything like that here?
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Well, as we sit in the EchoStop podcast studio, I agree. The answer is yes. Let's talk about a lot of the community policing that we're doing.
Okay, we're sitting here right now with Brad. He's part of that also. That's just one arm of it. The other arm is just all the strategic initiatives that we are launching and have launched in the city to address a number of different things that support the family, not take the place of family, because family has a responsibility and obligation to actually take care of family. But if we are to be any conduit of any sort, it needs to be to help bridge those families or help support those families be better families. So we have a family intervention team. We have our victim services unit. We have our youth violence prevention program. And then we have a number of community partners that we work with daily, public health, our trauma surgeons. The list goes on and on. The whole reality is that Omaha, Nebraska is doing some great things, obviously, as the article states, but so are we.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the original thing. And first of all, thank you, Denny, for sending in this question. And like I've told our viewers at echostoplive@gmail.com, that's echostoplive@gmail.com. We want to receive your questions. And if we can't answer a question during the show, we'll answer it after the show or even during a future show. And so we encourage that. But what I'm seeing really, Denny, to answer your question is, we are reducing gun violence in Mobile, but the biggest strategy that we have to focus on, and the reason we really created this podcast and other things, is to improve the perception. So just because we're doing something, if you don't know about it, if the citizens don't know about it, if people aren't hearing what's happening behind the scenes, then it's almost as if it's not happening in the perception world. And so, I'll say this, and I say this as I close out all the shows, and I'm not ready to do that just yet here, but I'll remind everybody that, we're not just impeding violence, that we are improving perception. And this should be the flagship to improve perception. Having representatives from the community being able to serve in a voluntary capacity, which means of their own will to actually do something, that's huge in improving the perception. And we would hope that we could use that as a conduit to even sort of be ambassadors to what is happening behind the scenes, so that the citizens do know that the police department cares, and that we are doing things. And I've seen you at many events, and I know you'll continue to be at those events supporting law enforcement and supporting the community. And really the coolest thing is when we see you at events where law enforcement's supporting the community and you're help supporting both of those. So tell us, if you had to pick the greatest highlight, what are some of the memorable things that you feel everybody should know that comes with being a participant in this type of voluntary activity?
Oh gosh, there's so many great activities that the police department in which they're engaged and need support, and it's so fun to be doing that. Some of the more memorable, I would venture, would be maybe. I'm an outdoors guy, always have been an outdoors guy, so I kind of love outdoor things. Got involved in the mud run. We had a huge group of volunteers engaged with that, and other individuals stationed around the course, encouraging and motivating runners who may be struggling in those aspects of things, and just kind of give them a little, come on, you can do this kind of thing.
Isn't that what society needs?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely it does. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
This past summer, we had the opportunity to engage with the youth violence prevention movements. There was a lot of excitement around that. Mm-hmm. It was an inaugural year for that, and it was, every 2-3 weeks or something, there was a new event that was going on, and we had very engaged volunteers as part of that effort, which was also really great. It was hot, but it was fun.
Well, I look at the commitment, and if you want to go back to the Bible, we can pull stories, but I just look around the community. Some of the best opportunities to be in a committed service, they're not necessarily comfortable. They're not always convenient. No. But the outcome, the benefit to what has to be sacrificed to make this place better, it really does take all of us. And we're winding down the show, Curtis, so we're going to want to get some last-minute insight from you here. But, before we do go, I would like to remind our viewers that echostoplive@gmail.com is the email address we use, and we have an anonymous tip line, and it's 844-251-0644, and we highly encourage you to participate in that. But before we sign off, Curtis, I know we've said a lot, and we've gone in a lot of different areas. I feel like we've tagged on almost all the corners of what we consider to be the four corners, which is really cool when I can see that happen just in one episode of a podcast. But your thoughts on volunteering, becoming involved, and actually doing something?
I think we did hit on a lot of points. I would just conclude that it is so important that we figure out ways to engage our youth, to get them more involved in some of the things that we're doing, whether it's a Citizens Academy designed for youth to ask questions, but also be educated on the things that they need to know so that when they take our places in society, that we have a Mobile to be proud of, and we have a city that is safe and is inviting to everyone to come to.
I think that's awesome. Brad, we can't thank you enough for spending time with us. I'm sure we'll be calling on you and the Academy to participate in future events, but I also know that we'll probably want to continue this conversation since we have kind of a limited time just in this episode. But we thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and I appreciate the invitation. Anytime.
And let me return the favor, and I know I speak on behalf of not only Curtis, but the entire police department when I say this, and hopefully they agree with me, and if they don't, they can send us an email. We'll find out in a second. But I want to do this for you because you, as a representative of the Alumni Association and the Citizens Academy, do so much for the city. I want to just take a second to thank you. I know from the bottom of our hearts, we could not do nearly all that we do without the support. And so in case nobody's thanked you lately, in case you haven't heard it directly from us, I want to put that to an end and put that to bed today. So thank you for what you do, and I truly appreciate you. And I know Curtis will ditto that. And as we sign off, thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you every Friday at 8:30 with what we think can actually make the difference. And honestly, if we're going to lead the effort to impede violence and improve perception, we have to all come together to do it. And we feel like the EchoStop Live podcast is just one portion of the effort to do that. And so, again, let's make Mobile safer than it was yesterday and as safe as it can be tomorrow. I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining in. Y'all stay safe, and we'll see you next Friday.